Welcome to the Academic Writing Amplified podcast. On this podcast, we believe that the culture of academia needs to change radically. Women and non-binary people are revolutionizing academia within institutions that were not built for us. If you're ready to reject the culture of overwork, kick guilt and overwhelm to the curb, and amplify your voice to make a real impact on your field without breaking down or burning out, you're in the right place. With our team of experienced writing coaches as co-hosts, we'll share insights and talk to inspiring guests to bring you the practical strategies, systems, and mindset shifts you need to find time to write, publish work you love, and design your career on your terms. And it all starts with writing. Let's go. Hello, and welcome. It's Kathy Mazak, your host of the Academic Writing Amplified podcast. Today we have a good one. It's juicy. It's inspired by real life events. And it has maybe like a teeny tiny bit of, tough love in it. Maybe a little bit of like, maybe you need to hear this. So pull up a chair. I am very excited about talking today about victim versus agent, deciding who you want to be this year. Now, there is a lot of victimhood in academia. And of course, there are legitimate reasons that you have been victimized inside of academia. So I'm not talking to you if that's the situation you've been in. I'm talking to people who are holding on to victimhood because they will always win as long as they can hold on to and grab on to that victim mentality. And what I mean by always winning is that nothing will ever work for you because you are wallowing in victimhood. So today what I want to talk about is I want to really make clear thoughts that you might have that are actually you staying in victim, and then how to flip them to be more agentive. Because I believe, as you know, if you're a listener of this podcast, or if you have read my book, or if you've taken any of my programs, I wouldn't have programs if I thought that people could just accept this kind of victim status and stay there, if I thought that that was a place to be. It is not the place for you. You deserve much more from your career than holding on to victimhood is going to get you. And I am a big believer in change. I am constantly looking for how to change my life and make it better. We only get to live one time. We only get to have one working life, right? One period of time in our lives that we are working on a career. And we get to do a career. Like, what a great privilege to do something that we are well educated for and that we enjoy. I think it should be as enjoyable as possible. I don't think that staying in victimhood is the place to be. I think we all have more agency than we think when it comes to changing our careers, shaping what we want them to be. So pull up a chair. This is what we're talking about today. So I also want to say before I get started that this victim mentality is a logical response to systems that were not built for you. What I want to say, though, is that you don't have to stay there. You can have these thoughts that I'm going to talk about on today's podcast, but you don't have to keep them and just hold on to them as the truth throughout your whole career, because these thoughts will hold you back from having the career you want and the career you deserve. If you stay thinking these thoughts, actually, you will have exactly the career that you want. You will have exactly the career that you want. You will have a career where you're always right because you always are the victim of something, and that prevents you from making anything better. So you just continue to be correct in your mind. Victims are always right in their minds. They're like, no, I can't is the main thing that starts their thoughts. I can't do that because that doesn't work for me because. So maybe you've been wanting to make change in your career. Maybe you've come to this podcast and you've listened to some of these things and you've thought, she sounds really inspiring, or that sounds really great, but I just am not able to do that. This is your podcast. This is your call to action in 2024. I also want to say before I officially start the body of this podcast that we have puppies. And so if you hear some occasional high-pitched squealing, I am actually in the room with the puppies because no one else is home. So I'm taking advantage of nobody else being home to have a quiet time to record. But I'm here with the puppies. There's 3. They're adorable. I don't know. They're like 4 days old. It's great. I'm sure that in 2 weeks, I'll be like pulling my hair out with these puppies. But right now, when they can't really, they can't open their eyes, they can't hear anything. They're just like, wiggling around on the floor, looking for their mama, who is doing very well. So if you hear the squealing, that's what it is. All right, here we go. So victims will always win the argument about why they can't, why things don't work for them, and why they have to stay in misery. This is kind of perpetuated, or the way that you dig into victimhood is through certain thoughts. And they're thoughts that I hear a lot. I hear them sometimes, versions of them, on the applications for Navigate. I hear them on when I ask in my newsletter, in my email newsletter, which, by the way, you should subscribe to. It's called In the Pipeline, weekly writing and publication advice. So go to scholarsvoice.org, scroll to the bottom of the page, and you'll find the place where you can opt in to that email newsletter. So occasionally I just say, hey, reply with your questions. And a lot of people will say things like I'm about to say now. And these are, if we stay in these thoughts, if we really sit in them and marinate in them, we will never move on. We will never turn into the agents or the actors, the creators of our careers. So I'll start with just some, right? I teach too much to be able to write and publish. So you might think this is just the objective statement of fact. And yet we have had so many people who we've worked with over the years who have had 4-4 teaching loads, even 5-5 teaching loads at a community college, for example, who have implemented the things that we teach inside of Navigate and have had and been able to write and publish books, even not just an occasional article, whole books. So if you are saying to yourself, I would really love to write and publish, but I just have such a heavy teaching load and other people don't have this heavy teaching load. Actually, many people have the heavy teaching load that you have. And using the kinds of things that we teach inside of Navigate or the advice you hear on this podcast or in my book, you will be able to write and publish. I did. In fact, all of the advice that I give comes from my career all the way through full professor with a 4-4 load. I always had a 4-4. So if you are continuing to have this thought, oh, I would try these things that Kathy talks about, but I just have too much of a heavy teaching load, so I'll never be able to write and publish. But you want to, then here's the way to flip this into a more agentive thought. Okay? So victim thought, I teach too much to be able to write and publish. I teach every day. That's something that sometimes people say, but I teach every day and other people don't teach every day, so they can write and publish, but I can't. So how do you flip this? You have to kind of look at things from a place of curiosity and exploration. How can I use the boundaries of my teaching, the fact that I have a heavy teaching load, how can I use it in my favor to create more writing and publishing time? How can I write and publish despite my high teaching load? How can I use the work of the classroom to write and publish more? These are all the thoughts to have. Instead of this shutting down, victim thing, thinking how can I take what seems to be a disadvantage and turn it to my advantage? How can I see the advantage in it and use it? Super simple version of this. People are always saying, I can't stay up. I can't keep up on my reading. Using the classes you teach, assigning the readings that you need to read too, and that gives you the structure within which to keep up with literature in the field. Very simple, very leveraged, very agentive. taking control, saying, nope, all of these things are going to work for me. My teaching is not working against me. My teaching is working for me. How can I make that so? Right? Okay, so that's one. Here's another thought that has people staying in victim mentality. And then insert your personal situation here, prevents me from being able to make time to write and publish. And I've heard this for people who are parents, caretakers of other adults or other people who have health problems, people who have long commutes, people who have started late in their careers, any kind of idiosyncratic situation that you think is like only yours, but actually there's a lot of people with those same situations. But if you're staying in victimhood, you are kind of grabbing on to that thing that you think you're the only one who has this problem. So you think you're the only one who is drained and overwhelmed by caretaking. You think that you're the only one who has health problems that prevent them from working the amount of hours per week that they actually want to work. You think that you're the only one who lives in a city different, far away from where you work, and you have a long commute and it takes a lot of time. Like, that's a pretty benign one, but still. So it's not that you shouldn't feel the humanity in that. It's that if you stay in that place, then you are wallowing in victimhood. If you, for your whole career, give the reason that you don't write and publish as because of whatever insert your reason there, if you just keep hearing yourself saying that again and again, you are sitting in victimhood. Okay, so the way to change that into a more agentive situation, let's take the health one, for example. So I will say I have had clients in every single one of the situations that I mentioned, and many more. And not just one client in each of those situations, many, many, many. And if you treat yourself with humanity around the thing and look for problem solving, look for solutions, then you can still get your writing and publishing done. So I have a client who was diagnosed with a chronic disorder recently, like in the last 2 years. And what she did, instead of sitting in victimhood, was she figured out, okay, what kind of support do I need to be able to do my job and also take exquisite care of my health? What kind of support do I need? And she was able to talk to her university and say, actually, I need this accommodation. I need this, and set up those things. And she also was like, I need to not work 8 hours a day. I can go to work for 8 hours a day for 3 days a week. The other 2 days, I need to keep completely clear for recovery and rest. And I can work a whole career and do everything I need to do inside of that time. It is possible. I know that if you're stuck thinking that time is your problem, that you're like, how is that possible? But actually, it really is. Because, reference last week's podcast episode, time isn't actually the problem. Discernment's the problem. So, is having small children going to prevent you from writing and publishing? For some time, yes. Forever, no. So thinking of the same thing, if you have to take care of an aging parent, or I had a client who during our program, her mother, I think if her father passed away, and then she had to help her mother go into like a home for care. And she was like, I'm so behind. Like, yes, you are. And you will come out of it. She didn't stay there. She didn't stay in this like, woe is me, I had all these problems. She felt her feelings. She had the problems, and she adjusted her expectations, first of all, which is a really big part of it. And then knew this will not last forever. I will create a better situation for myself. I will create the career I want, even though I have increased caretaking responsibilities. All right. You've heard other podcasts of mine. Humanity and feeling your humanness and being self-compassionate is really, really important to me. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't have periods of your life. And actually, I'm also all about seasonality. that there's seasons in your life that certain things might be true or are going to be true, right? I had this tragedy in my life and I'm going to now need recovery time from that. But it's not like these bad things always happen to me. I can never get ahead, all or nothing thinking, all of that kind of drenched in victimhood. It's more like, let me be self-compassionate. Let me change my expectations and let me keep going because I want to have a career that I love. All right. Another victim-y thought. This one I get people say exactly this. You teach this thing that works for other people. Insert the thing, the mission statement, the whatever the things that I teach, right? You teach this thing that works for other people, but since I can't implement it exactly the way you teach it, it won't work for me. Most of these people have never come into the programs. They've only listened to me talk about the mission statement on the podcast, or I have a blog post about it too. Maybe they read the blog post. It is not the same. So I will just say, it is not the same to get the mission statement outside of the programs and to get the mission statement inside of the programs. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, if you have had this thought, oh yeah, I know that there's a lot of advice out there and you have all these podcast episodes that talk about these things, but I can't possibly do that. You are sitting in victimhood. You are sitting in victim mentality. There is nothing that I teach on the podcast or in the program that can't be slightly zhuzhed for you, that can't be adapted a little bit. But if you're looking at your learning and your professional development as she has to do it that way, but I can't possibly do it that way, so no, you are just closing the door on a lot of growth. And people who want to be agents of their career leave the door open to growth. They say, well, I'm not sure how this is going to work, but I'm going to try it. It's a very different mentality. And that is the mentality that will help you grow in your career and agentively create the kind of career that you want. So I just have a couple more. One is my toxic department or my toxic relationship with my former advisor stops me from publishing. And listen, again, it's not that this isn't true. And it's not that it doesn't it's going to be true for some amount of time, but it does not have to be true forever. If you're using this as the reason you're not publishing, it's time for you to move past these people and to not let them have control over your life. It is time to have agency around your career. And I think, of course, there's a lot of fear for people when they are thinking about cutting ties with a former advisor, but more often than not, it is the thing to do. It is the thing to do. So agents will say either, I don't care what my toxic department thinks, I will make a way for myself. Or they think it is okay for me to part ways with my former advisor, or I have agency over that relationship and I don't have to put up with whatever toxic behavior and I can end the relationship if that's what needs to happen. So agents choose who they work with. They choose who to listen to and who gets their precious time and attention. You don't have to just accept it. And if you've been thinking for too long that this toxic relationship is going to define the rest of your career, it is time to shed that in 2024. Okay. The last one, and then a little story, and then we'll be done. Here's another victimhood thought. My field is so unique and different and specific and whatever from all the other fields out there that my writing is never good enough to submit it. I have to edit and I have to spend so much time because my field has some kind of particularity. That's you sitting in victimhood. We work with people across all kinds of fields that have all kinds of idiosyncratic things about them, and they do the writing and publishing. It might take work. It might take work to change your relationship with writing. If you're having a relationship with writing that is mostly based on fear, it's going to be hard to change that, but you can do it. And we have seen people do it. So if you're using any of these victim-y statements, again, these are thoughts. it's okay to have these thoughts and you don't have to sit in them. If you are sitting in them and like holding on to them as like, well, as long as I really believe that I teach too much to write and publish, then I don't have to face the fact that I haven't written and published in all these years, right? If I can just hold on to the fact that I have all of these things happening in my life outside of my career, and those things are holding me back, then, I don't have to face the thoughts I might have about maybe I'm not good enough or something, right? You don't have to sit with these victim-y thoughts. You can be an agent in your career. Agents create their careers. They are the people who drive their career. Other people don't drive their career. Circumstances don't drive their career. They drive their career. And those are the kind of people who are going to be able to do the 90% awesome, who are going to be able to like get out of these terrible cycles of the academic culture that is like just holding especially women and non-binary professors back from really like reaching their fullest potential and thus creating amazing knowledge in the world and mentoring incredible students and having that like ripple effect where you are positive, you are agentive, you are creating the career that you want, you're living it, you're doing the thing. And then people around you start to notice and they start to believe that they can do it too, that there's a different way. So I want to offer that to you today. If you have had some of these thoughts, again, it's fine. And like I said, we get them on our Navigate applications sometimes, like, oh, like what's holding you back? One of the questions on the application is, what do you think is holding you back from publishing to the level that you know you're capable of? And we get a lot of these answers, but the way that they're written usually, and then that's why we also have a pre-enrollment call, is because then I can tell the people who are like, this is my situation and I can see how it is an obstacle and I'm ready to overcome the obstacle. Versus this is my situation and you can't tell me that this is not my situation. You can't tell me that these things aren't holding me back. It's like, nobody's saying that. We are just wanting to have you recognize what you think is holding you back so that then you are open to the tools that are going to help you really enact that agency over your career. Those are the tools that we teach and Navigate. So thank you for listening today. If anything hit home, please reach out to us. If you are ready to knock over the obstacles to you writing and publishing more, our Navigate program is open for enrollment, I believe, still today if you're listening in real time. Our program starts January 29th and runs for 12 weeks. We will be running additional cohorts, one in May, one starts, so kind of basically doing spring or winter, whatever this is, this semester, summer, fall, but you can get in now. Don't wait. Don't wait. Like, don't be like, yeah, it'll be better in the summer. It'll be better in the fall. Don't wait. Do it now. Solve these problems now. Overcome these obstacles now. Knock them out of the way to really be able to step into creating the career and life that you want. Have a wonderful day. Bye. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time supporting yourself and your writing by listening to this episode. If you like what you heard today, the best way to say thank you is to hop on over to Apple iTunes and write an honest review. The more reviews, the more amazing academic women and non-binary people will find this podcast. So go write one now.